Friend of the program, Mr. Mike Rowe. How are you?
First of all, with regard to your sponsors,
Yes.
excellent choices.
Thank you.
I love this foundation, and at the risk of just shameless pluggery and wanton capitalism, this is an American Giant shirt.
Oh, my gosh.
I
have that shirt. I have that
I think
shirt.
you wore it last time I was here, and I thought, what are the odds that we'd show up looking like the Bobbsey
Right.
twins? But you know Byard, he's a friend of mine.
I love him.
And I've had him on my podcast, and he's featured in a new book that you'll love if you haven't seen it. It's called Flannel.
Yep.
And it's all about what it really takes to make this shirt.
Shockingly difficult.
It is amazing, brother.
Yeah.
I mean, I know you know that.
Yeah.
You gave me a shirt 10, 11 years ago when you were doing, what was it,
1791.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I still have it. It was like
Wow.
it's like a canvas work shirt.
Yeah.
And ever since then, man, I've been obsessed with trying to better understand the drama and the trauma of getting textile manufacturing back in this country. It's mind-boggling.
If companies like Levi's would do 5% of their manufacturing here in America,
Yeah.
America would change.
Yep,
Would change.
for sure.
No interest in it at all.
I mean, when you really start to peel back the layers, and this is, I don't know if this is on your agenda of stuff to talk about, but it is, I just did a whole thing on the toothpick. Like the business, we used to be the toothpick capital of the world.
We're very proud of it.
It was a giant industry up in Maine, you know, white birch. I mean, the book on it is amazing. And when you slowly see the way that we basically gave up on toothpicks, you can start to understand the way we gave up on textiles. And then you start asking questions like, well, what hope does Detroit really have? Like if we can't get the splinter right, if we can't get a shirt right? So there are no small things. Anyway, what American Giant's doing, I think it matters because they're 13 years at it now, right?
Yeah.
So that's, good for you for having them on it. They're great.
I know. I love them. I love them. So, Mike, let's just talk about the state of the world because we are being boxed. If you're a small business guy, you have under 20 employees, you now have a Transparency Act where you'll spend 2 years in jail if you don't tell the federal government, the Treasury Crimes Division, everything that they want to know. I don't know how much that's going to cost the small businessman in just time alone. Plus, you have the PRO Act, which has now just been done through the Department of Labor. We don't vote on anything anymore. It's just a new guidelines.
Yeah. Yes, new guidelines.
Yeah. And what is that going to do to, when we think gig economy, we think, Uber drivers, et cetera. No. Truckers alone. Will we have groceries at our stores?
50,000 in California alone. 50,000. I had a guy on my podcast called Tom Odom, who's one of these truckers, and he's been written about in the press, and I was just so interested in his story. In fact, I interviewed him while he was in his truck driving across the fruited plain, and he just pulled over, and we had this amazing conversation. But people, I like to talk about it in terms of unintended consequences, but I realize now that I might be giving too much credit.
Way too much credit.
Right. But look, I'm trying to stay in whatever lane is left to me. But when I first saw
They'll
AB5,
be taking that lane away from you soon.
it's getting narrow, man.
It's very
getting narrow.
Yeah.
When I first saw this thing rear its ugly head, it was, to your point, aimed toward the gig economy in Silicon Valley, mostly Uber and Lyft. And then it just grew and grew and grew. Graphic artists, writers, cinematographers, dancers, so many people. And I'm like, how many are actually going to be impacted? And then the question was, how many people are actually freelancing right now? And the answer is north of 70 million in the whole country. And so what the drafters of AB5 asked us to believe initially was that huge numbers of workers were being shamelessly victimized by greedy and rapacious capitalists who should have hired them as employees and therefore opened the door to benefits and so forth. Now, did that ever happen? Yeah, I suspect. It's a big country and there's exceptions to every rule. But the number of people who were adversely affected prior to this versus the number of people who have now lost the freedom to work the way they want is mind-boggling. And it happened in California, of course. And to your point, it's happened and is happening right now. And when people realize what this means, you want to set your own schedule? Forget it. You want to eat what you kill? Forget it. We don't want to think that way anymore because that person might fail. And if that person fails, well, then the narrative goes, we just can't tolerate that.
I'm sure you've been to Buckingham Palace and Windsor Castle. I was just over there for the first time, and the new king was in the castle, and he's got this whole wing by himself, and he lands his giant helicopter right there in his backyard. And I've never been, like I've been to, the American castles, and I've never had a problem with it. Never. I walked through that castle and it pissed me off the entire time.
Yeah.
Because I thought there is no one in this country that could ever build this except the one who's cornered the market.
Right.
There's no opportunity, none, to actually become something because the government has you so pigeonholed and people just accept it. And I don't want to be like that. I don't want to live in that kind of country. If there's no risk, there's no reward.
Well, there's the four-letter word, right? Risk, I guess risk and maybe debt are the only four-letter words right now that I think are truly for sale. We have to have honest conversations about both of those things. The willingness to accept risk is the fundamental bedrock of freelancing.
Right. And not everybody is willing to take that risk. Some people just want a stable job.
And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with that.
It's so similar. I think the reason this thing has become such an issue for me is because it translates perfectly into a 4-year education versus a trade school. This idea that we have to put our thumb on the scale, this idea that one has to be elevated at the expense of the other is precisely what's informing the PRO Act. We're not saying that it's good to be an employee. We're saying it's so good that if you don't do that, then you're doomed. You are engaging in a level of behavior that's so risky, you're actually posing some sort of existential threat, not just to yourself, but to your family, to your neighbor, and so forth. So it's amazing how we can't simply put all the options on the table and let the grown-ups decide what fits best.
I got to tell you, you say, even in today's world where universities are taking our children and molding them into the exact, Woodrow Wilson said, the job of a university is to make a man the most unlike his father as possible. Okay, that was his goal, and that's really kind of the goal now. I think in many places, and so many people will say, because I've got 2 teenagers, are they going to go to college? No, probably not. One of them maybe, the other one trade school maybe. Don't know. It's going to be up to them. And what is the value of a big, expensive $250,000 education if you're not going to use it?
Right.
If you don't have something, if you're just like, well, I think I'm going to do this. The world is changing so fast, we don't know what jobs are going to be there.
I worry that, look, I'm the product of a liberal arts education. I got one. It served me well. I'm glad I got one.
Yeah.
Did it lead directly to my chosen field? No. It did not. But it comes in handy every single day. And mine consists of 2 years at a community college and another couple years at a university. And when I finished in '84, the whole thing cost $12,200, all of it.
Jeez.
Today, same schools, same course loads, $92,000. Now, nothing in the history of this country has increased faster than the cost of a 4-year degree.
Bitcoin.
Well, but then fallen and then back and then fallen, right?
I know.
Right? I mean, look, really, if you look at healthcare, if you look at real estate, if you look at food, and if you look at energy, the big 4, Those things have all been eclipsed by the cost of a 4-year degree. But still, we can't help ourselves. Still, we've told this whole generation, if you don't get one, you're screwed, right? And that's criminal. It's a shame because my liberal arts education right now is on this thing. All of
yes,
it.
all of it.
I've got access to 98% of the known information right now for free.
Yeah.
Okay. But still we charge. During lockdowns, Columbia raised their rates. NYU raised their rates. And we still paid it, right? So, look, it's easy to look at the Ivy League, especially now, and point to all sorts of embarrassments.
Yeah.
But it's not even about that.
Mm-hmm.
It's just this bigger thing that's happening where a whole chunk of our workforce is tied to a whole chunk of our education system that has become the proximate cause of derision.
I said to my son, "Where did you learn that?" He said, "Oh, I can audit a course at MIT online." Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, you have the opportunity unlike any human has had. So your big push for a long time is you can go to college, but you don't need to go to college.
That's right.
And you've been, I mean, it started with dirty jobs.
Mm-hmm.
Now you are, I mean, your foundation has raised a ton of money. How many people are you putting through college?
So far, we've got close to 2,000 who we've helped master a skill that's in demand. Mike Rowe Works began really just as a PR campaign in 2008. Dirty Jobs was at its absolute height. The whole country seemed to be unemployed, but everywhere we went, we saw these help wanted signs. So it seemed pretty clear there was some other narrative going on. And this idea that you could fix unemployment by simply creating more jobs was actually a canard. Today we have close to 10 million open jobs. We've got $1.7 trillion in student loans, and we're still sending the same basic message that we always have. This path is the best. Everything else is going to lead to some sort of vocational consolation prize. So that PR campaign morphed into a trade resource center, and now we're a scholarship fund. We've raised about $9 million and given it out.
You're doing another $1 million this year, aren't you?
Right now, as we speak. Yeah, microworks.org. If anybody's listening with a kid or a grandkid, or you yourself want to learn a skill that's in demand, we can help, and we have helped. But it's really a means to an end, Glenn. The scholarship program in and of itself is great, but what it's done for me is it's given me a chance to circle back and talk to people who 5-6 years ago got a welding certificate with our help, or a plumbing, right? Mm-hmm. And when you ask them the question today, how's it going? You get amazing answers. Like, now some of them are still plumbing. They're in a strong union.
Hang on just a second. Still plumbing. Do you know what plumbers make? You do.
I do.
Plumbers make a really good living if they bust their ass. They make a really good living.
And if you're back to that freelance model we were talking about, you can work as much as you want. You can set your own schedule. You are busy. I know a lot of guys, both electric, plumbing, heating and air conditioning. You can basically work anywhere in the country right now.
And I have to tell you, I was building a house and I had the plumbers there and I was talking to them. The guy's like, I can't get anybody to help me. He's like, I'm aging out soon. I don't have to do this. He said, I've been trying to get all the kids in my family to, good living here.
Here's the math. For every 5 tradespeople who retire this year, 2 will replace them.
Jeez.
That's been happening for 15 years. Now, you know where this is going, right? In fact, we're here right now. It's happening right now. So what I'm trying to do with my little slice of the internet is make sure I can tell the stories of the people that I just described. Because, I mean, I can tell a decent story, but I'm not persuasive to a 25-year-old or a 20-year-old. They need to see somebody who looks like them and talks like them, who is living debt-free and making $150,000 a year. And I've got a long list of those people, and they are very persuasive. So, going back to your first question, how do I feel about the country? What do I think needs to happen? I've got a list of things, but for me, somewhere near the top is a persuasive campaign. And that's not even the right word, but we need persuasive voices talking in a credible way about the value of all forms of education and the absolute criticality of not ignoring the part of our workforce that keeps these lights on, because it's only a matter of national security. It really is, man.
Oh.
And so, look, here's the good news, and I'm not sure it's good. You know, sometimes things need to go splat, right? We've talked about this before. And so rather than just having a conversation about, okay, this company's trying to hire skilled tradespeople and they can't, and these people over here don't have a skill, we should get them together. Yeah, that's happening. But now the real conversation is, how long do you, Glenn, want to wait for a plumber? How long does Stu want to wait for an electrician when the lights aren't coming on?
There's a Simpsons on this very thing that I thought.
There's a Simpsons on everything.
Yeah, there is.
And a South Park, too.
Okay, where do people go if they want to find out more about the scholarships?
MikeRoweWorks.org. We're always open. We'll be taking applications through the middle of April. We'll give away $1 million in this tranche, and we'll probably do it again later this year. But, you know, baby steps, man. You got to push the boulder up the hill.
Mike Rowe, always pushing the boulder up the hill. Thank you.
Anytime.